Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video where I talk to you about my reading for the last week, in this case from the 21st until the 28th of April. I'm still very croaky. This week all of my intros will explain that I have been very unwell for the last week and I've only just started to be able to talk with any fidelity for any period of time. I still sound really horrible though, but I am actually okay. I do have 12 books to talk about. I'm going to try and be fairly brief with them just because I don't know how long my voice will actually last in this video. But I'm going to start off with some kids review titles that are coming out this week or have come out in the past week that I haven't had a chance to share on here yet. Now obviously all of these books will also have separate reviews on Little Bookish Teacher, so if you want more in-depth thoughts on them, that's where you'll go, but I did want to mention them here as well. Okay, from Allen and Unwin I received two picture books. One is Tap 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 by Hervé Tallet. This is a really fascinating picture book because it's not a story. It is really about play and exploration and movement with your hands. So the way that this book is set out is that each page has instructions for what to do. So it's place your hand here, warm up your fingers, and then zoom them around the page, and you follow the direction of the lines and the different shapes that are on the page to play essentially with your hands. So it's a really great fine motor book, but it is gorgeous. It is huge and bright and colorful. I love the primary color palette, and it was just a really enjoyable book because it's very different to the picture books that I normally review. Also from Allen and Unwin I received Shadowcatchers by Kirsty Murray. This again is another children's picture book that celebrates play. It's about these two siblings that explore shadows and the different types of shadows that you get from different types of light throughout the day. And it was really fun and joyful, and it gave me a lot of ideas of how to use this with young children, particularly around exploring the science concepts of light and shadow and also just developmental play. So this one was a really gorgeous new release. I'll keep going with Allen and Unwin's titles. So they also sent me a junior fiction book, which is Hercules Quick's Big Bag of Tricks. This is by Ursula Dubosarski. This is actually a collection of 3 Hercules Quick stories. Hercules is a young boy who lives with his aunt Alligator in an apartment full of different animals, and one day he sees a box of magic tricks in a shop that he really wants, and he's determined to save up for it. And so he offers to do odd jobs for the people in his apartment block. And all the stories are really about how he helps out his very eccentric animal neighbors with often hilarious jobs while trying to save money. It's a really great book about helping others, but also about reminding kids that it's okay to do those jobs and to save your money and to have a purpose for saving money. This was a really lovely read, and I do always like Ursula Dubosarski's writing. And then I also read a middle grade title by Allen and Unwin. This is a sci-fi middle grade, and it is the companion book to Mars Awakens, which I reviewed when it first came out, by H.M. Moore. So it's part of the Mars duology, and it's about 2 colonies of humans that live on Mars that have really become isolationist and have nothing to do with one another. And in the first book we see them start to connect through a couple of the kids who end up stumbling across each other on the plains of Mars. But what's happened, because these 2 colonies have been separate for so long, they don't have any, the genetics are very specific to their core group, and that's causing some issues. Plus there is another group called the Others, which are like symbiotic beings that both groups are afraid of. And in this one, the 2 groups of kids really begin to realize that the elders of each group maybe have lost sight of the original mission to Mars, and they have to work together to try and convince both colonies that they need to work together. And so there's lots of racing backwards and forwards between the colonies of trying to change people's perceptions of each other. And it was a really interesting story. I quite liked the story of the Others and the way that it explored the symbiotic relationship that the Others need to have with humans. So I was really pleased to be able to read the conclusion to the story that I started last year. So thanks to Allen Unwin for all of those. Then from Pan Macmillan I received The Breakfast Club Adventures, The Ghoul in School, written by Marcus Rashford and written by Alex Felice Coya. This one was sent to me unsolicited. It is the story of Marcus, who is part of the Breakfast Club at school, and that's a group of kids who love to solve mysteries. But they've had a bit of a streak of bad luck. They haven't really been able to solve anything for a while, and Marcus is feeling a little bit disheartened, and he thinks that their friendship group is going to break up if they can't solve a mystery. But then they find out about the troubles that the basketball team is having, that they think they're cursed. And so they begin investigating the potential ghoul that might be haunting the school. I can see this really appealing to boys because there's quite a bit of sport in here. Marcus loves to play soccer. Marcus Rashford is a soccer player. or a football player. And there's some basketball in here as well, but also just that mystery element of trying to figure out exactly what's going on. So this was a really interesting read, and I am very appreciative of Pan Macmillan for sending it to me. Then we move into the adult titles that I read this week, which were all romance titles. So the first one was Lucky Pucker by Hilary Rose. This is the first book in the Toronto Northman series. It is a hockey romance, and it was one that had been recommended to me by someone on TikTok. So our heroine in this story, Holly, works for a PR firm, and she and her best friend are trying to build up their profile at their firm because the guy that is currently their team leader is creepy and gross. But there's one night at a bar where she happens to catch the eye of Luke Valentine, who is a hockey player, and he is in a bit of hot water at the minute. He keeps doing silly things in front of cameras, and when he finds out that she works for a PR firm, he hires them and basically says, I only want her to run our PR, and I want her to run it for the entire team. And so she and her best friend end up in this role, and she ends up spending more time with Luke, and that's sort of where the relationship goes. This one was fast-paced and entertaining. One thing that did bother me though, and I don't think this was necessarily done intentionally, but it's one of those things that you just pick up on and you go, ooh, okay, I don't know how I feel about that. The word Nazi is used in here 3 times, and it's never used to indicate actual Nazis. It's that, like that curse word, or so-and-so is such a that. And normally, like if it happened once, I could probably let it slide, but 3 times made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm interested in continuing the series, and I just want to see if the language changes a little bit, just because, you know, we can be conscious, and if we're going to curse, we can be a little bit more creative than that. Over the rare weekend, I read Don't Kiss and Tell by Megan Quinn, which is Vancouver Agitators Book 1, another hockey romance. This one is about Winnie, who is sort of trying to escape her life that is just not going the way that she wants at the minute. And she's just driving, much to the consternation of one of her friends. And in the middle of nowhere, her car breaks down, and it's the middle of the storm, and she ends up stumbling across a house full of hockey players who are on break. And they end up helping her out by letting her stay the night and riding out the storm. And she begins to fall for the team goalie, Pacey, who is utterly adorable and just wants her to be safe and happy and does everything he can to win her over. So it was fun and entertaining, and I liked meeting some of the other players, and I know we'll get books for those characters, and I will be continuing this series because it was just a very enjoyable read, which was a good thing because I could only read a certain amount every day, and that's not normally how I like to read. So the fact that I could put it down and then just pick it up whenever I had time worked for me. I also read The Marriage Claim by Evie Mitchell. This is one of her flip-flop books, because apparently I hadn't read The Marriage Claim. I thought I had, but I'd read Silent Night, which is the Ted Lasso inspired one. But The Marriage Claim is about Catherine, who becomes queen of her people when her father passes away, but she comes under pressure from her government because there is a clause that says that within a certain number of years of taking the throne, she has to have an heir, and she's not married when she takes the throne. So they're pressuring her to find a husband and to have a kid, which she is deeply unappreciative of. But then there is an assassination attempt on her life, and she is saved by Jonathan, who is the leader of one of the political parties. She thinks that they have opposing viewpoints, but in reality, things may not be as simple as that. And as sort of payment for saving her life, he requests the marriage claim, which is sort of a traditional claim of their people. And it's actually a very sweet story, because I thought, I didn't know how this was going to go. I mean, I trust Evie, but it was super sweet the way that their relationship developed, because they do have to build trust first. And even though it's a really short story, they do build trust. I just felt warm fuzzies after reading it. So I really enjoyed that. I then read books 2 and 3 in the Swift Hat Trick series by Hannah Cowan. So book 2 is Blissful Hook. This one is about hockey player Tyler Bateman, who ends up falling for his best friend's little sister, which is a big no-no. And it turns out that prior to this book, in a novella, I think, they had had a one-night stand. And then at the start of this book, they end up hooking up again. And Tyler freaks out because he's like, I can't believe I did this again. Oakley is going to kill me. And Gracie is rightfully so very annoyed at him. It's about the two of them figuring out that actually maybe they do have feelings for one another, and maybe Oakley sort of needs to get over himself a little bit because Gracie is able to make decisions on her own. And Tyler has to, understand that he has worth as well. I enjoyed a lot of the banter and the interplay between these characters. I will say the ending of this one felt really abrupt. It does lead into book 3, but I feel like we probably needed an extra chapter or something from where we ended up, but it was still a really enjoyable read. Book 3 is Vital Blindside, and this one is set about 10 years after, I think, all of this. And it's about Adam, who is one of the friends from the group. And he is a single dad. He found out that he had a 2-year-old son when he was 23, and the mother was going through some mental health issues. And so she basically handed off custody to him. And so Adam had to grow up really quickly. And now he's 33. His son is 12. And Adam runs an ice training rink. So he trains hockey players, he trains figure skaters, and he's in need of a new trainer. And he ends up hiring Scarlett, who is 23. She is a women's hockey player. She's played for the Canadian women's Olympic team. She is incredibly good, but she's been injured, and basically that's taken her off the ice. And so she's back home. She's not skating anymore. She's feeling all the feelings about that, but she's also caring for her mother, who has developed dementia. And when Adam needs a trainer, her mum is the one who actually suggests that she apply for it. And Adam is thrilled because he thinks she's amazing. Adam is the most sunshiny hero character that I have read in a long time. Like, he is an utter delight. He just thinks the world of Scarlett. As they begin to work together, Adam's sunshiny nature kind of gets under Scarlett's very grumpy heroine skin, and she gets along really well with his son, and it's just a really lovely relationship. So it's, you know, single dad, age gap, grumpy heroine, all of those things that I just really enjoyed. And I loved having a female hockey player as sort of one of the lead characters. I thought that was just really, really fun. I would like more of that, please. If you can't tell, Vital Blindside was my favorite book in that series. Like, I love that book so much. I also read For the Captain by Jenny Redford, which is Detroit Pirates Book 1, another hockey romance. Are we surprised? No. This one is about an author and socialite, Charlotte, who needs a change of pace and a change of scenery for her creativity purposes. And so she ends up moving to Detroit, and there she meets the captain of the Detroit Pirates. They have some fun back and forth banter, some light flirting, and then there is a charity auction in which she bids an utterly insane amount of money on him to have dinner with him, but not on her own. She's met some friends in town, and they have a young son, and so she offers them the opportunity. They'll have this, you know, group dinner. And I really loved her relationship with the son of her new friends, because he's like 5 and adorable. And basically she uses him as a shield while she's still trying to figure out if she wants to even pursue anything with Jordan, because she has previously been with a hockey player and it did not go well, and he is not a very nice character that features in the book. And so she's kind of reluctant to let Jordan in. And so she uses the child as a bit of a buffer, but that kind of backfires because everyone loves this kid and he's just utterly adorable. Like, the scenes with Charlotte and this child are some of my favorite in the book. This one was super short. I think it was less than 200 pages. It was really entertaining and fun. I love the idea of the heroine in this book basically almost has more money than he does, or I think she might even have more money than he does. It sort of even the scales a little bit. Like, she doesn't need him to buy her anything. And I kind of love that, because a lot of these stories have lots of extravagant gifts that the heroine can't afford. In this one, not the case. And then the final book that I read, and I was so excited about this, I received a review copy of Grim and Bear It by Juliet Cross. This is the final book in the Stay Spell series about the Savoy sisters. It is Clara and Henry's story, and it was just utterly adorable. I will preface this though by saying that if you are not someone who likes lots of pregnancy or lots of talk of babies in your book, just be aware of that going into it. Being the 6th book in the series and all the sisters are partnered up, they're all starting to have kids. So just be aware of that, because I know that's not everyone's thing. It felt very much like these characters, because that was always going to be the end point with them. But if it's not something that you are into, just be aware of it. So Clara and Henry have probably had the slowest of slow burn romance stories in the entire series, because they met in book 1 and have been dancing around each other ever since. And in this book, Clara is determined not to let that go anymore. And so the book starts off with her marching up to Henry's door with cupcakes and basically telling him he's coming to her historical romance book club, because she knows that he's a fan of the books. He's reading the ones that the book club are reading and commenting on her blog. It's just delightful how Henry just gives in to her, because they both are besotted with one another. Like, they just love each other, but they don't know what to do. Henry has hang-ups because of being a Grimm and being a necromancer and not really being able to control his abilities beyond just blocking them, which is the result of trauma from childhood, when the person who was hired to teach him how to manage his powers really abused that and traumatized him. And so he slowly opens up to Clara throughout the story about that, and she's determined to help him overcome it. And their relationship is just so pure. Like, there is no third act breakup. There is some dramatic stuff that happens towards the end, but they just work. I was so happy reading it. Like, this is like when I read Chloe Lisa's book the other week. It just feels like coming home to characters that I've loved for a really long time. And I was so glad to see the conclusion of this. It worked really well. And who knows, maybe one day in the future we will get, you know, the second generation kids, because they're hilarious. The other thing I really liked about this one is the gentle ribbing that Clara and Henry get from everyone around them, because everyone knows that they're in love and have been dancing around one another and have just been waiting to see what happens. And when it does, it is hilarious and funny. And you know, the story has a family in it. It's the sisters. That's who we've been following. But it has such a strong sense of found family in all of these people that have become part of their lives that it was just gorgeous. So yes, that is my reading week. Considering I was sick, I read a lot of things, which was great because it just gave me something to do while I was recovering, and I had a really enjoyable time with everything. Like, it was a good reading week. In the comments, I would love to know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on picking any of them up. Alternatively, feel free to share something that you have been reading and loving. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a thumbs up emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.